Hello, everybody. It's Charles again here, and this time we're with Pokemon Draft Challenger League, Season 2 Power Rankings for the Baja Blast Division. So, just like I said, my name is Charles. I'm a two-time PDCL coach and also an admin, and today I am joined by Joey.
Hey guys, nice to be back here for the Baja Blast division.
Absolutely, and you know what? Glad to be back, because we are without Ryan this time, but that's okay, because we will power through this. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So, just to go over the methodology that we use for these rankings. So, these are community submitted rankings, and the average rank for each team was calculated to determine each placing. Panel contributed rankings as well, and they were including the averages. So, basically, me, Joey, and Ryan all put in rankings in this, and they are calculated with this. And this was just to give more data, to give a better picture. And then lastly, individual notes and the discussion from us are based on the team that was drafted, not the coach. And yeah, I guess I'll just add one more thing, is that me and Joey are going to be giving our opinions on the teams here. If we say something you maybe don't disagree with, you can take what we say with a grain of salt here. And this is just basically just something we do for fun, and just just for fun. And if you say something you don't like, don't worry too much about it. You're still going to do great. And yeah, do you have anything you'd like to add before we start?
Yeah, if you disagree with anything that I say, just feel free to ping Ryan, because
True. All right. All right, but without further ado, let's get right into the power rankings. We'll start with number 14, and if you want to start.
Yeah, so this is Alex. I actually have no idea how to say your name. I'm going to say Alex, I think, but Alex. Anyway, your team is Walking Wake, Torkoal, Meowscarada, Sandy Shocks, Tauros Blaze, Pachirisu, Lilligant, Lokix, Revavroom, Dedenne, and Tynamo. So, I'm actually surprised, honestly, that this team was ranked 14th, because I thought that this, at first glance, I thought that this team was pretty good. I think that obviously the Walking Wake plus Torkoal combo is really potent, and it's one that I've been wanting to try for myself, and I did actually manage to draft that in another league, but I haven't really done anything with it yet. So I thought that seeing those two together, and obviously on this slide we've got the Lilligant there as well, and that's just a really strong Sun mode. They have nice synergy together. However, I think that this team could have been expressed in that Sun mode a little bit differently and with more efficacy, because the Meowscarada there doesn't seem to be the most synergistic choice. But I'll get into that in a little bit, because I think that what's really good about this team is having the Sandy Shocks there as well. Sandy Shocks benefiting from Sun being set as well, it would be beneficial for a lot of situations. And then you also get the Tauros Blaze with the Fire Boost and the Sun as well. So you've got a lot of different options here to work within the Sun mode. And I think that taking advantage of that across all these different tiers with things like Chlorophyll and the Photosynthesis, as well as having that solid fire and water boosted damage from the Walking Wake, I feel like this Sun mode is going to be very strong. However, that is also kind of the main weakness of this team, and I suppose that's why it was ranked lower. I think that this team does rely a bit too heavily on the Sun being active, and from what I can see, there's not really a reliable way to get Sun back up if somebody overrides it with Rain Dance, or if Pelipper comes out, or just this team is a bit weak, I think, to manual weather overriding drought. So with that, the versatility for what it can do is a bit poor, and it can be pretty easily countered in prep by pretty much just any non-sun weather mode, except for maybe Rain Dance, I guess, because Walking Wake can still function in that. But I don't know. I think that this particular team is a bit tricky because there are a lot of things that can make it a lot more effective with some simple transactions. For example, I think that Brute Bonnet would be really good in place of Meowscarada, especially because it would also get the boost from the sun. It has the same typing, and Brute Bonnet is also just way bulkier, and it has a lot of support tools that could add in here. But as I'm looking at this, I actually think that the best swap that could be made here would be Screamtail. Picking up Screamtail instead of Meowscarada would give great, reliable, accessible access to um, manual stun to get it back up if you needed it. And I think that actually would probably be the main transaction that I would suggest for this particular team to make it a little bit better. But overall, I mean, just as long as you find a way to get Sun back up manually, if it gets overridden, this team I think is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Any thoughts to add there, Charles?
Yeah, not too much. But yeah, kind of just go for what you're saying. When the sun's up here, this team's gonna go crazy. It's got some really good stuff to like work with the sun, multiple paradoxes. So yeah, we won't go into that. But I do agree that like outside of the sun, like the synergies become kind of strange. So like one thing is there's 4 electric types, and overall there's just a really big ground weakness. And like your things to cover the ground weakness are things like the Masquerada and like the Lilligant. And like, well, like they're great. Like they deal with ground types very well. Like if you need to switch into that, I mean, they're just not going to do it super well. And also, another thing with this team is that once we get to the lower end, I think specifically with the Deaden and the Dynamo, we start to see like, I mean, like what are these things even going to do? Like I think you can get so much value out of. Oh, I almost want to say like anything, like especially since you have a
True.
team with like you have a team with the Sandy Shocks and the Pachirisu, which are both phenomenal at being electric types, really. And yeah, that's really all I got for this.
Yeah, that actually made me think. I mean, I just kind of said it, but swapping Dynamo with Strudel here would
Oh, shit, it'll be
massively
great.
improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would make it way better because you get that prankster, prankster son or prankster just support in general if you wanted to or needed it for a particular matchup. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for
I don't know.
sure.
I don't have anything else to add though.
All right, so in that case, we'll go ahead and move on to rank number 13. Number rank 13, we have Varun or Varun. I'm also not sure how to pronounce that, but their team is going to be Roaring Moon, Chiyu, Gyarados, Glamora, Sylveon, Abomasnow, Brambleghast, Bellavolt, Fletchender, and Bronzor, Pikachu. So, okay, just looking at this team from a glance, I see very like good options. I mean, like I see Roaring Moon, Chiyu, Gyarados is like what my eyes like are immediately going to. Like those are all 3 very strong options. With the Glamora and the Sylveon, I think they can cover those things pretty well, especially since like Roaring Moon can set Tailwind and like really help those things out. Abomasnow, I'm not 100% sure what Abomasnow's role here is, but gotta let people cook. And you got the Brambleghast with the Fletchender here, which is really cool. I think Brambleghast is honestly really like great. I think it's pretty underrated. And then just and then everything else like the Bellavolt, Bronzor, Pikachu. It just seemed like he's trying to synergize or finish things off with like Trick Room and Pikachu. No, nice fake out. Gives him a fake out user. And overall, this team seems like pretty good, like I was saying. But it just feels like there's nothing really clear here. Like I don't really see like this team can. I don't really know how to articulate it right. But like with things like the Abomasnow, with like the Bellavolt and things like that, it's like what are they really like gonna do? Like it's just things like that, just like little things like that. I think just kind of collectively add up for me, and like I think maybe that's why this team was ranked so low. I don't remember where I personally ranked this team, but yeah. I don't know if I can add anything else that I very constructive. I think maybe a good transaction would be, looking into something where you can get more synergy and more value in their place of something like the Obama Snow, or if you don't want to get rid of Obama Snow, you can drop something else in the team to make Obama Snow's value increase. Because like I said, I'm just not seeing like really what role it's fitting in the team. Because it's like, I mean, I guess you could argue like I guess it's like a grass type, ground resist, things like that. But like in the ground resist section here, you got Gyarados, which is pretty damn good. And I just think something maybe can be put better in that slot, and as well as potentially the Belly Bolt. I don't know what's remaining, so I don't know like what would synergize better with those. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. And I'll let you put your thoughts into.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of talked about the Abomasnow several times there, and I really agree with what you said because all I can really see it doing on this team is setting Aurora Veil. Does it even get Aurora Veil? It
It
gets Aurora
does.
Veil,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, okay. Then that's really all I can see it doing effectively, because there's no snow mode here. There's no other ice type. There's nothing that can. There's no slush rush. There's nothing that can benefit from snow being up. So I'm very confused, especially because the Abomasnow was actually swapped in Grace with from Oranguru. He originally drafted Oranguru, and I feel like that was better for this team. So I do agree. The Abomasnow is really out of place for me, and I feel like it disrupts the synergy across these tiers. Like that, it has a lot of negative synergy because bringing it in 1 week. I mean, what like you said, what's it going to do? It's going to click Aurora Veil, and kind of it. But instead of just focusing so much on that, I do want to say that I like that this team has access to some very strong and viable options across the different modes and speed tiers with, Roaring Moon, and you know how I love Chiyu. It's a great fish, man. So I think that it's got potential here, to do some work. Chiyu next to Sylveon, next to Glamora, that those special attackers are going to hit really hard. And then the Roaring Moon with the Gyarados. Like, I don't know. I think that those combos are going to be really nice. It's just that fitting them all together with some of these more peculiar picks, it makes sense to me why this one was ranked a little bit on the lower side. I personally think though that dropping Abomasnow, because I believe Abomasnow's, yeah, it's right there on the slide. It's tier 2, so as a tier 2, it's really not getting a lot of value. I think that something, if you wanted a grass type in that slot, then like Breloom would be amazing. Even Palmot, I think having a fighting type in this team would be really beneficial. Maybe that's a little too electric heavy, but I don't know. I think the Breloom is probably the best pick, I think, to swap out for the Abomasnow there. If I was just going to actually say, pick something else, but
Yeah.
I really don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I
That's all I've got.
agree. I think Breloom does actually look pretty good here. And you do have the Bramble Gas as well for grass type. And like I do want to say like I do know like Obama Snow can come out and just click free blizzards. I actually have
Yeah.
Sonova in a Little Cup League for that exact reason, just because it can come out and click that. But like you got a lot of other strong spread moves. Like you got Chiyu Heatwave, Chiyu or not Chiyu, Sylveon Hyper Voice. So it's like yeah, kind of a thing. But I'm not going to beat the dead horse with that anymore. And I think it's a good place to move on.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and go to rank 12, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so we've got Miss Mag here for rank 12. Your team is Thunderous Incarnate, Great Tusk, Garganical, however you choose to say that. Typhlosion, Hisui, Overquill, Toadscruel, Florges, Vaporeon, Mismagius, Tinkatuff, and Bombardier. Love seeing the Mismagius on the Miss Mag team. That's great. So I absolutely love this team. I actually think it's really cool. In general, I feel like it was drafted with move pools, abilities, and typings in mind. pretty heavily because I think that there's a lot of deep move pools across each individual mon here that can offer a large variety of what it can possibly do week to week. And the different abilities that have very interesting interactions with each other. Obviously, you've got stuff like Mycelium, however you say it, on the Toad Scroll, which is always an interesting one to use. You've got cool things with Symbiosis. With the Florges, it's Symbiosis, right?
Yeah, Symbiosis. That's right.
Yeah. Sorry, I was getting a little confused there for a second. But like Garganical has a really cool ability as well, and I just think that there are some very interesting abilities and typings across the board here that are going to be very useful as tools. However, I think something that might hurt this team a little bit is that the stat allocation for each of these Pokemon is just a little bit lackluster in each area. Great Tusk is kind of the exception. But I don't know, like when I look at this team, I see that there are pretty direct ways that we can counter. If I were to use my team, I'm not going to say specific things, but if I were to use my team here to prep against this, I feel like I personally have like a lot of tools that could easily target down some of the stronger points of this team, and I feel like this team in general is just going to be easy to prep to overwhelm. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of situations where, with proper prep on your own part, you'll be able to countering, so to speak. But I think that this one just looks a little weaker in prep to me because I feel like there are a lot of ways to overcome kind of the lower stats on average for some of these Pokemon. Like Overquill is cool, but it does not have the attack stat that I would want it to have as kind of my fairy killer, or my ghost attacker, I guess. But I suppose Typhlosion can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do want to mention that I think that the Thunderous Great Tusk Disc Quake option here is really cool. I think that it's going to be really potent, and it might even be the best option in the format, just that's available right now. And it's going to be tough to counter without Ground Terras or Levitate or some other way to deal with that particular thing. It also has some very interesting stall options with the Garganical and just the bulk to make things work well here. I do just think that the stats are kind of the main weakness here. So the T2s are a little awkward with their stat allocations, and looks like I'm noticing a vulnerability to like a good ice or water core. Vaporeon could help out with that, but kind of it. I guess Thunderous too. As far as transactions go, I think that there's not a whole lot that I would really replace on this team. I think that maybe if you wanted to go for like Appleton instead of Vaporeon, I think the Vaporeon is a good choice, but Appleton might offer just a little bit more for your Trick Room mode here. And then you could pick up like Wug Trio for one of these T4s to like maintain your water type, and it would still give you some offensive power in the water side. But I don't know, that dropping Vaporeon seems a little bit iffy because I feel like the water absorb is going to be very useful. So I don't know. That's all I've got to say on that.
Yeah. So before I say anything, I just like kind of want to say like I think in any normal draft, I don't think this team is bottom 30 in any normal draft. So I just like want to like put that in like reference. Like we got some strong teams in Baja Blast, like really strong teams in Baja Blast, and I do really like this one. It's got nice options. But like kind of like you're saying, like if there's a team that this team goes against that's like pretty explosive, like it's gonna be this team might have a hard time like matching the tempo of like another team because like I mean like it's trick room mods right now. It's mainly like trick room, like I guess sweeper is like the Garganackle, which is fine. Like it's good. It can do work under that. You can shut things down with that, but like yeah, you're not getting anything explosive really out of trick room, and it's gonna be hard to get like in a fast mode. Is also gonna be hard to get a lot of momentum early. I mean, like you get the thunders with the thunder wave and like the taunt, and like you do got the disquake option, but like yeah, when it comes to that, like the offensive, like getting like a lot of offensive momentum, it might be a little tough. But like I mean, this is a pretty nice balanced team, pretty bulky team either way. So like positioning shouldn't be too big of a problem here. So maybe that's just something you just deal with and work around. And like honestly, you do that, like more power to you. I think that's great. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of agree with like the transactions too. It's like it's kind of hard. Like I think this is a really hard team to make like transactions for because like
Yeah.
I mean everything here seems to have like some sort of purpose, and it's yeah I you can there's just a lot of like balance potential and a lot of positioning here. So whatever Miss Mag thinks will help with that, I think would be a good transaction. I don't know any specific changes I would personally make though.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the positioning.
Yeah.
I really do think that this team it looks really effective when in the right position. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. But with that said, let's go ahead and go to rank number 11, and this is going to be Toxic's team, and I'll go ahead and start us off. Toxic drafted Landers I, Palafin Volcarona, Azelf Sableye Mimikyu, Sarina Lucario Electros, and Knucklestack Oinkalone. Okay, so looking at this team, well, got the Landers here. Landers is, I mean, very powerful. I think with Sandseer Storm, or whatever it's called, Sandseer Storm? Anyway, really strong move, goes Burr. It's got a nice Rain Setter and Sableye to help it go Burr, because I'm pretty sure it's 100% accurate. And Palafin Volcarona, as well with the Sarina there, I think that's just a really strong Firewater Grass core. Got the I mean, Azelf's very strong too. Mimikyu can set Trick Room well. Like, honestly, I look at this team and everything can kind of do something. Like, even Oinkalone, like, well, like, I think that's a harder Pokemon to get a lot of value out of, but, like, you can put that out and you have an option to get Trick Room up, with, like, if it's next to Mimikyu, like, you can't taunt. So, yeah, I think everything on this team honestly gets a lot of value. And I guess in with it being rank 11, I'm not like I guess what people might be seeing. I don't really know in particular, but like this team does lack some like offensive presence to an extent. So okay, so I guess so obviously there's Landorus and there's Palafin and like Volcarona as Adelph. Like those four, great. Offensive powerhouses, really great. Palafin you have to set up. And in my personal experience with Palafin, like, and bring forth format, it's not always the easiest thing to do because you have to lead pretty passive. That's just something that just comes with the territory with using Palafin. If you can switch around with that and have the proper switch-ins for that, Landers can take electric moves, Volcarona can take grass moves, etc. Or Serena is also just a really good switch in here. But yeah, there's that. And really, outside of those four, like offensive pressure might come a little hard to might be a little difficult thing for this team. I mean, there's things that can still do damage, and I also want to point out that he has a really nice Disquake mode that I'm actually just now noticing. Electros Landers is kind of sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that might be where people are saying, hey, maybe this isn't like the highest ranked team. With that said, though, I still think this team's really good. Like, like this team seems really solid, and like Toxic's gonna do well with it. I think anyone can do well with this team. But I'm gonna stop rambling now, and I'll let you take over.
Sure. Well, I actually don't have too much to add to this. I think that what you said was pretty much the same as what I would say. The only thing I guess is that I remember that Azelf was swapped here from Mesprit.
Yeah, he had Mesprit.
Mesprit, yeah. Which I personally I think I would actually undo because I think that Mesprit offers some slightly better options to the team and provides some additional bulk that could be useful to get the Palafin in the right position. Um, but other than that, um, even though the Electros is pretty sick, I think that I guess my biggest problem here is that I just want to see some more bulk on this team to help get the Pokemon into position or get Palafin into position a little bit more effortlessly. And I think that Electros swapping for something like Rotom Fan or Frost would be more beneficial, especially because Electros is not going to handle Trick Room on its own anyway on this team, and I think that beefing up the Disquake option and having Rotom's general move pool flexibility would benefit this team a little bit better than Electros. Not to say that Electros is bad or anything here. I just think that Rotom might be a little bit more effective in that particular slot. That said, I mean, I do think that this particular team it kind of has the same primary weakness as the previous team, which is just that this one's really going to come down to getting things into the right positions. And once it is in the right position, it's going to be really tough to deal with. But it's going to take some skillful play in order to do that, and that's just going to come down to a game by game basis and how prep comes along. So, yeah.
Sure. All right. And with that, let's go ahead and move to rank number 10. And Joey, let's take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So this is Brave, and Brave's team is Fluttermane, Glastrier, Dragonite, Wo-Chien, Arcanine, Magnezone, Espathra, Clawitzer, Toxicroak, Stantler, and Clodsire. So I really want to like this team, but I'm worried about what some of the pieces like Wo-Chien and Toxicroak really offer here. I think Espathra will be an excellent supportive piece for the Fluttermane, but it doesn't really bring as much value to Magnezone or Clawitzer on this team, since neither of them are particularly fast enough to take advantage of the Lumina Crash Blitz playstyle, without Tailwind anyway. And setting up Tailwind for them just to use Espathra to boost them seems like a really inefficient playstyle for this particular team. So I imagine the team would just kind of ditch Espathra during Trick Room mode weeks with the Glastrier. Yeah, it's hard to say. In theory, I think this team has a lot of powerful options and combinations, but in practice and actual prep, I think that Brave will find that this team is going to have an awkward time fitting complete modes into 4 to 6 mons every week. I do think that this one of the strengths of this team is that it has a very high power level with the tier 1s covering a good mix of the potential modes and speed tiers, with Dragonite working as a bulky pseudo support piece if needed. I think that there's a lot of flexibility with the potency of those particular things there, just because Fluttermane can go fast and Glastrier can go really slow. So, and then Dragonite can kind of fit where it needs to. I do think that one of the main weaknesses I see here is that Steel types are going to be kind of tough. Arcanine is kind of the only thing that answers them here. And I think a flexible Steel type like King Gambit would be really devastating to this team. So I mean, obviously that's just one mon, so that's not too crazy. But Steel types in general look pretty good here. I would say that that's probably the main weakness I see. And I also think that the core modes here are just split a little bit too dramatically here because of you've got the Fluttermane and you've got the Glastrier, and that's great. That's a strong point for it, but it also has its own weakness because it leaves some awkward spots for the other pieces of the team here to work together. Like I said, with the Espathra and kind of the Magnezone fitting in and Clawitzer and all that. In terms of like transactions, I think that, like I said, I don't see Wo-Chien bringing much value to this team. Wo-Chien is just it's kind of a weird mon to use. I like it, but I don't know. I think Umbreon would kind of serve as a better defensive dark type here without that extra grass typing. But honestly, I'm not sure that the defensive dark type here is actually best. I would maybe go for something like a offensive dark type like Samurott Hisui, which would open up that Clawitzer slot for a faster special attacker to work with the Espathra. I think that actually, now that I'm looking at that, Samurott H looks pretty good because it could work as kind of a mix. You could run a mixed set on it with the Espathra, special attack and benefiting from some physical stuff with the sharpness, like Aqua Cutter, or Razor Shell. Is it Razor Shell that it gets? Yeah. Anyway,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah. I also think if you got rid of the Wo-Chien here, it would leave an option open for a grass type in the lower tiers. Something like Chestnut. I mean, Chestnut's not that great, but for a low tier grass type, it could be useful. Especially because it would unlock some of that water pledge, grass pledge shenanigans, which might be fun if you went for the Samurott swap there. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to ramble too much about different transaction ideas. I see a lot of potential options that you could switch here to make things a little bit more synergistic. And I personally just don't really see Wo-Chien bringing a lot of benefit here. So that's all. You want to add any thoughts there, Charles?
Yeah. So I kind of look at this team. This kind of looks like a team that like I would like to draft. Like this seems like very up my alley. I like the very like. I think a big advantage that this team has is it has a lot of punch, like immediate punch power. I mean, you got like the Fluttermane, you got the Glastrier, you got the Dragonite, you got all these high stats, and you can just do damage. Same thing with the Clawitzer, with the Limina Crash and Magnezone. Like, there's just so much like damage potential, and also with like things like Arcanine, like Stantler intimidates, and just like pretty decent cores for the most part. Pivoting is going to be a thing you can do, and like you're going to be able to get good positions. Really, the biggest gripe I have with this team, and it's been said a lot already, but I really want to like pound this in. I think the Wo-Chien needs to go here. It's because like I struggle to see what it does. So Wo-Chien, it wants to play very stolly. It wants to play very slow. And a team that wants to hit things immediately and hit things hard. So Wo-Chien, for one, can't really hit things immediately very hard. And it's also a hindrance. So if like the Glastier's out, it's not going to be able to do as much damage thanks to Wo-Chien's ability. Same thing goes for like Dragonite. Like if you want to run a Banded E-Speed set, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot by having Wo-Chien. So with that in mind, like I don't understand like what it's like doing for the team. I really do like everything else here, and I believe you had mentioned Brute Bonnet was still available earlier, and like honestly, that might be a decent thing to fit in there. I mean, it's good switch and it gives you Spore. I think it'd give you some more options, but like, yeah, I really like the team. I just don't love the Wo-Chien, and that's basically all I've got for this.
Oh, I actually just noticed because of the only ground type here is the Clodsire. I feel like swapping the Wo-Chien for Mudsdale would be crazy.
Be awesome. Double horse.
Double horse, dude. Double horse Trick Room. That'd be awesome.
All right. I mean, I'm here for that, personally. But yeah, do you have any other thoughts from you before we move on?
No. All right. We can move on.
All right, let's go on to number 9. And I will be starting this one, and it'll be Hippo's team. So Hippo's team is Moltres Galar, Goldango, Enamorous Therian, Tauros Aqua, Hisuian Arcanine Raichu, Rapska, Hisuian Decidueye, Dugtrio, and Veluza and Surskit. So, doing my obligatory quick little glance of the team. Okay. So, Moltres Galar is kind of an interesting Pokemon for me this generation. I know a lot of people are questioning whether or not it's going to be like as effective in this meta, and honestly, I think I think it'll be fine. And I actually do like some of the synergies it provides with this team. So I believe it got access to Tailwind, which is one thing. So it does act as a Tailwind setter for the team. And I also just I really like it in like synergy with the Raichu here. And we can get that to later. And then next up, we've got things like Goldango, just big damage, and honestly, just a lot of spread damage coming out of the two of those. And then an Amherst which is a Pokemon I'm very excited to see used, has a crazy stat total, can function under Trick Room. He's got Rap's got to set the Trick Room. Amazing. Uh, Tauros and Arcanine, good Intimidators, make a good core together. And yeah, I'm just like, I think I think my main thing I'm seeing with the team is that like I don't like love is the Veluza Surskit. I don't really know what those do specifically for the team, but hey, I mean if there's something I don't see, then I'm like totally willing to see it. But yeah, and I think maybe it's just things like that that make people rank this like number 9 as opposed to being higher. Is that maybe they're just not seeing a lot of value out of these lower slots, and yeah, I could also see a potential issue being speed tiers. The speed tiers are a little, I guess, a little middling. There are things to help support that, like I said, the Raichu, and then like you got the Dugtrio Bulldoze too, which is actually really nice next to the Moltres. Hopefully I didn't just spoil that, but like, yeah. um, I mean, yeah. Like I said earlier, like a lot of these teams are really strong here. I think this one is another very strong team here. I think that maybe there could be a bit more value out of some of the tier 4 picks, but outside of that, I think I'll just let you put your thoughts in.
Yeah, I would say that this team has very solid power level. Honestly, I think it goes to show that the teams in this division are absolutely cracked because this team looks really really good to me. So being number 9 on the list, and we've got 8 other teams above it, and this one is just it looks strong. There's a lot of offensive power here with you know there's well-tuned stats for the Pokemon that want to fill in the roles that they are going to be in, and there's solid synergy across each tier here, except for perhaps the tier 4. Like I said, I'm not, or like you said, I'm not so sure what Veluza and Surskit are doing. I mean, Surskit's kind of interesting. It has some neat tools, but primarily as like a swift swim mon, and I don't see a good way for Rain to really do anything here. So there's not a lot of value being gotten out of the Surskit for like fast supportive stuff, in my opinion. Here, yeah, I don't know. One thing I'm kind of noticing here though is that Light Screen might be kind of an easy prep option to deal with most of this team. There's not a whole lot of physical offense.
He does
I
have
mean, I
free,
guess you've got the.
so
Yeah, I was just gonna say you do have Tauros there, which
yeah.
is, I mean, and Arcanine is strong too. The no recoil head smash, stab head smash is gonna be pretty nuts, I think. But you still, your main, your tier 1s are all special, so that could be a hindrance. I'm just looking for weaknesses, but it's really gonna be tough because this team is good. I think that this team is good. So maybe for like a transaction idea, you could swap like a Doug trio out here, because it's not particularly doing much as the only ground type, and the team isn't really set up that can take it, or in a way that it can take advantage of like arena trap shenanigans or like some of the other gimmicky stuff it can do, like Final Gambit and all that. I don't know. I think that Raichu kind of eliminates the need for a ground type on this team. Maybe not eliminates, but it kind of helps cover it because any pesky electric types will have to just deal with Lightning Rod. And I would probably double down on another steel type. Honestly, go Copper in the Trick Room mode to beef it up, and then or maybe even Berserker to do Steely Spirit stuff next to Goldango. That would be cool. That's all I've got for this one.
All right, yeah. This is just I really like this team out here, though. I really do like this team. But
Yeah.
go ahead. Let's go ahead and move on to number 8, and I'll let you start.
So number 8 is Ollie. We've got Regieleki, Rillaboom, Basque Legion Male, Persian Alola, Murkrow, Typhlosion, Johto, Braviary, Hisui, Ursaring, Sunflora, Hypno, and Pyroar. So at first, my first thoughts on this is that this team is excellent. I remember actually in my rankings for this, I think I put this one either as like number 1 or number 2. I really thought that this team was awesome. I think it just has so much strong speed control with access to so many flexible and valuable abilities and move pools through each different mon. Like Murkrow is just awesome. Rillaboom has um, so many ways that it can disrupt the team, whether it's overwhelming damage or just like fake out stuff. Um, Persian obviously has great tools. Even like Braviary here, the Hisuian one. I'm really curious to see what Braviary is going to be capable of just in general in this format, because I think it's a really interesting mon. And its toolkit is kind of funky, and I like funky mons. So I'm excited to see that on this team. I think that it actually works nicely here. And just overall, this team just has a solid array of dynamic offense. And it even has kind of a potent sun mode hidden in here that I think could be pretty fun to take advantage of with the Pyroar. Yeah, I also I think that the Fire Water Grass core is really nice on this team. Basculegion is pretty cool as a water type. And Rillaboom I think complements it nicely, and the Typhlosion can take some good hits as well. I guess Trick Room could be a pretty big problem for this team if Ollie isn't careful, because it looks like Ursaring and I guess Braviary might want to go in Trick Room, but I don't know. They're just slightly too fast. I commented on Ursaring in our other PR, but I feel like Ursaring is just slightly too fast to really be a good Trick Room on its own. And the only other thing here that's really supporting it in Trick Room is going to be the Sunflora, and I don't really see the synergy between Sunflora and Ursaring here. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Trick Room looks like it's pretty strong into this team. There are some tools to deal with it, like the Murkrow with Prankster Taunt, or I guess just Fake Out could work as well. But yeah, I do think that Pyroar feels somewhat redundant on this team, with Typhlosion being in here as a solid fire type. But that said, it's a T4, and Pyroar's probably one of the better value picks in T4. It might be the best fire. It probably is the best fire type in T4. So it's really hard to justify leaving it behind, especially if you did go for like a hyper voice set or something. If you weren't just focusing on fire type for that. That said, I do think that Sandaconda actually would bring a lot of value to this team, because it's missing a ground type, and it would be nice if there was just a solid ground type, and Sandaconda would fit that bill pretty nicely. And I believe it's T4 as well in this league. So yeah, the only other thing I could see here is maybe dropping the Persian, because it's a little bit redundant with all the other support mons that you have here. It's still really good, and I'm not so sure about dropping it, but I do see the benefit of maybe picking up something like Spiritomb to get a better Trick Room setter in here, and also keeping your solid support Dark type. So those are my thoughts on this team. Anything to add there, Charles?
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with what I really like about this team, and my favorite thing about this team is got to be the enablers, like the support Pokemon that can enable others. And on top of that, I really like the Pokemon that get enabled from the enablers. So I guess what I'm kind of trying to say here is like, I mean, if these like with the right lead here, like I mean, Ollie can kind of just like steamroll because he's got the right support Pokemon, he's got the right things to function with the support Pokemon, and I just think that that's very very good here. Um, Now for some potential weaknesses that I see, so I do kind of agree that Trick Room might be an issue, but I will say I do got to say it just because a Sunroom Sunflora team did go positive at the Milwaukee Regional. So hey, you know what? Sunflora can do it. Sunflora can do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That's true.
and yeah, but the big thing that like I kind of like see as a team, I'm like, oh, I don't know, is that I I think this team really needs a fairy type because this team doesn't really have a good way to deal with like dark types, and it also doesn't really have an effective way of dealing with dragon types. It's actually pretty weak to both of those types. And I think fitting in a fairy in here somewhere would honestly be amazing. And if I were to put it, if I personally would have put it somewhere, I think ideally you'd probably put it in maybe the Hisuian Braviary slot, or maybe the Persian slot, or I don't know. But I do think that this team benefits very greatly from just the existence of a fairy type on the team. And
True.
those I think those are going to be my general thoughts here. If this team gets the right lead and people aren't prepared for it, this team's going to run you over. But there's some pretty big counterplay to this team.
Yeah, well said.
And with that, let's go ahead and go to number 7. We're halfway there. And rank 7, we're going to have Ed. So
This is my favorite slide, by the way.
yes, it's very great. All right, so Ed drafted Dondozo Tatsugiri with with Indeedee, and then he has the Armorove, okay, and the Corviknight Crocodile, Flamigo, Salazzle, Mischievous, Kriagonal, Impidimp. So I mean, I'm just gonna point out the elephant in the room here. Dozo Giri, Indeedee Armorove. I mean, I don't think those need much explanation. Those have been very prominent, very strong options in the current regulation, like Series 1, Series 2, Regulation C. They're all very good, and it's so easy to see why. So to see both of those options on the same team is pretty frightening, I think, from the perspective of someone trying to prep against this. And on top of this, like things like Corviknight and Crocodile also have really nice synergy. You get like the Flamigo, which like I mean, if that Flamigo can manage to get to copy those Dozo stat boosts, like that's a little scary, a little spooky. And yeah, it's just got solid options all the way around. This is personally, I think, one of the strongest teams just because of like, I mean, at least just like looking at it, I think this team is definitely the scariest, and I think that intimidation factor is likely to come into play at least once, twice, maybe even 3 times during the draft season with people fighting this team. With potential weaknesses, I mean, with these very strong options, it comes not a lot of versatility. So these options are very strong. However, people know how to fight this. Like they'll have options. People will have options for these. And I don't. That's not like in my opinion, that's a good weakness to have. Like, you know, it's like whatever. But yeah, I think this with that. And outside of these like combos and outside of like the Corviknight and the Crocodile and things like that, I think this team kind of maybe falls off a bit, and the team potentially loses a bit of value. And yeah, so like there's like there's clear things where like you need to prep, and like there's clear things where like you can kind of just like put my hand over and not really look at them, and I'll probably still be fine as long as I'm prepped for these big sixth Pokemon. And I think that's probably gonna be all I'm gonna say about the team. And I'll let you take over. But yeah, I think it's still solid.
Yeah, honestly, this team being ranked 7 is crazy to me because it's cracked, dude. Like absolutely ridiculous power level. You've got Dozogiri, you've got Indeedee Arma, you've got Flamigo to boost next to the Dozo. You've got Corviknight in here. Oh my gosh! Like there's so much going on here that it complements itself well. I do think that you're right, Charles. That if there's a weakness, it's people know how to deal with most of this stuff by now. But that being said, people know how to deal with this stuff when they have free reign in being able to manipulate their teams in the meta, for VGC.
Yeah.
So having to work with their draft teams and be flexible and creative with that is definitely not going to be as easy as just saying, oh, well, I can prep these mons for Dozogiri, because, well, I don't know. Haze is really, really strong here, I think, into this team. So that might be a big weakness here. It does kind of deal with half of what this team can really do. So that might be an issue to need to prep around. But overall, yeah, I mean this team is absolutely crazy, and I think that it's kind of insane when Krookodile is like the least threatening offensive piece here, which Krookodile's strong, so it's like I don't know. I think that maybe picking up a better Tailwind setter might benefit this team. In our other PR video, I definitely wasn't feeling Corviknight very well. Ryan was adamant that Corviknight brought a lot of value. I still am not quite sold on it. I think that on this particular team, Corviknight also could be replaced, like I said, with just a better like Tailwind setter to open up that option on the team. And I mean, Noivern is still on the board, so if you swapped out Corviknight for Noivern, I think that would be solid. Personally, that said, you could probably also get some better value out of like Sneasel or Zoroark instead of Salazzle, because if you wanted to keep the Corviknight, that can deal with the fairies just fine, and the Salazzle, I mean, it's not going to really be using it as an offensive piece in this team because there's so many better options, and getting a better support piece for that slot, like Sneasel or Zoroark, would probably be, well, I guess Zoroark is kind of a mixed bag, so maybe that's not a good suggestion. But Sneasel, I think, is a good one to swap out for Salazzle there. I think it would just make this team a lot more annoying to prep against, like even more annoying to prep against with like Sneasel instead of Salazzle there. But that's all I have. Those are the only things I have for this team. So we can move on if you have nothing else to say, Charles.
I think yeah, I don't have anything else to add. So let's go and move on to rank 6 and take it away.
Yeah, so this is Kev's. We've got Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Zapdos, Kanto, Gudra, Hisui, Pelipper, Klefki, Gengar, Gothorita, Donphan, Go-Goat, Quagsire, and Gumshoos. Okay, so this team, it has a solid mix of bulk and offensive power. You can just clearly see that right here. With the Gudra and the Urshifu, like there's, I can see why. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of stumbling over my thoughts on this one because this particular team just seems like it has so much flexibility and versatility to also work very potently inside its modes that I'm not really sure how this isn't rank 1. Like, I don't know. All these top teams, it just feels so freaking strong to me. It's very difficult for me to find pieces of them that make sense as to why they're not all listed number one. I know that's ridiculous to say, but
No, I agree. I agree.
it's just I don't know how anybody can rank these teams really definitively, because man, it's just this is crazy. You know, this team covers for its own weaknesses so well, and it has so much strong synergy across all the tiers. Like Gudra's bulk here is supported so incredibly well because you've got the clef key to set up screens if it wanted to. Which, I mean, you're not going to kill the Gudra if you've got screens up. Let me tell you right now. And even things like the Pelipper for a rain mode in here to throw out hurricanes from the Zapdos. I think it gets hurricane. But even if it doesn't, you've got water. You get rain boosted rapid strikes from the Urshifu next to the Pelipper, and Gengar has awesome offense and speed control options. Gothorita here is, man, it can get really bulky with the Eviolite as well. It has Shadow Tag, I believe, just like Gothitelle. There's just a lot of potent options here. I don't really see many weaknesses. I guess maybe it'll have a challenge dealing with priority Tailwind teams like Tornadus or Murkrow. But even then, I feel like it can handle that with its own Trick Room mode pretty dang well. Like if it needed to go Trick Room instead of trying to compete in Tailwind. I guess maybe some of the mid tiers here lack a little bit of offensive threat. Like Pelipper doesn't do a whole lot other than set rain. I mean, it can get some damage in, but with the high power level across this division, like Pelipper's probably not going to be a very offensively potent piece. Donphan's good here, I think. I don't know, dude. I have a really hard time finding weaknesses here, or even things to like swap out. Like I just don't. There's not a whole lot that I would add or change to this team. I think that it's really, really freaking solid, and it's going to be an absolute menace to deal with. Do you have any more constructive feedback on that, Charles? Because I don't know.
No, I mean,
it's great.
So I don't remember my power rankings specifically. I do remember this team was top 3 for me. This is one of my favorite teams. I'm very biased about some of the Pokemon here. I know in the Voltage video I mentioned it before with the Urshifu. I am like super on the Urshifu train. That thing is ridiculous. And the Rapid Strikes form, like in particular, is just ruthless. It's brutal, like dummy, absurd, and it's got rain. It's got rain to boost its already stupid attacks. I mean, it's that Sword Stance, like, ugh. It's got Klefki to support it very well, and like outside of that, it's just this team's just really, really nice to look at. It's really is a team. Like this team is a sight for sore eyes for sure. And you've gushed a lot about it, so I'll try to figure out some criticism here. One thing I do see is that it might rely a little too hard on rain, but I don't really know how much it's going to rely on rain. I mean, specifically with the Zapdos, it only gets hurricanes, so really, if you want to do any type of flying damage, I mean, you're going to have like the rain up, which isn't the worst thing considering one of your flying types is Pelipper. Yeah. But yeah, and on top of that, like you are having a lot of offense come out of the water typing, which isn't inherently bad. Water is a strong type, but I mean it's just something to look out for. And I think for like potential transactions, maybe I mean like this seems pretty solid on its own. The only thing that's like kind of like for me is the Quagsire, because you already have so much water damage. You already have Donphan for ground coverage. I guess like I see like Quagsire being there as a water absorb user, just so people can't abuse your own rain against you, but I think it'll be fine in that regard. So if there was a transaction to be made, I think Quagsire for something to give you a bit more value, whatever that might be, maybe a fire type, since you don't really need a crazy fire type if you're running a rain team. But yeah, those are my general thoughts. I really like this team.
Yeah.
Right. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to rank 5. And I'll go ahead and start us off with Sasso's team. Sasso drafts Earthfree Single Strike, Excalibur, Spectre, Talonflame, Gothitelle, Gastrodon, Dinkaton, Luxray, Lurantis, Cloyster, and Wigglytuff. Okay, so I'm I'm just gonna say this. This might be a spoiler, but it should not be a spoiler. People need to know about this. Urshifu Gothitelle is kind of disgusting.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy,
Because it, I mean, one, you can't escape the strong wicked blows, and two, you can't protect. And Gothitelle's threatening fake out. So that's really good. I really love that. Like, and Sasso, I'm sorry if that's like a big spoiler for your team, but people need to know about that. Like, people just need to know you're still gonna do good with it. But like, oh my god, that's just very very good. So I also really like the things like the Excalibur and the Tinkaton. I think that's a pretty good combo. Tinkaton can help Excalibur set up, so on, and they also just cover each other pretty nicely for the most part. Especially since like you can switch Excalibur on a fire type and a fire type move and get a boost. And I think that also pairs well with the Talonflame, and yeah, I think. And then there's Spectre, and like, Spectre is pretty cool because it seems really physical, and Spectre can get around that with its special attacks. And yeah, I think this team has a lot of really strong options going for it. And as for potential like negatives, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to like pinpoint like specific like weaknesses because like I can kind of I definitely see where like where the value comes from all of these picks. Like I definitely do see it. I think this is definitely a team, like, I mean, we see it with a lot of teams. It definitely has, like, super great value, and then as you start going down the tiers, like, the value is just, like, less and less and less and less. That
yeah.
sort of thing. But, like I said, like, I see where, like, he's coming from, and I see where they fit in. Like, things like Lurantis. I'm not super crazy about Lurantis, but, like, I understand where it fits in with this team. And the same thing with Cloyster. Like, it's kind of a weird Pokemon in general, but, like, I understand where he's coming from with it. And with transactions, I think the thing that probably gets the least amount of value here is going to be like the Wigglytuff. Just because, like, I mean, you already got a fairy type Tinkaton. Tinkaton is absolutely absurd. I think that Pokemon is crazy good. Both its typing is good, and also Gigaton Hammer is like one of the best moves in the game. In draft, that might be a hot take to some people, but I stand by it. So, like, yeah, I think maybe like dropping like the Wigglytuff here for something that could give you more value might be more beneficial. I don't know because like it does have that competitive, but like things like Urshifu, which is like a primary attacker for you, like Wicked Blood doesn't care about Intimidate, and at least I don't think it does. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about the team, and I'll let you put your thoughts in.
Yeah, so this team I think it's going to benefit a lot from having Talonflame specifically as an option. I think that Fairy Terra looks pretty strong against it. I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking in bullet points here because I think, man, I don't know. You kind of covered most of what I was going to say or what I would say on this team. It doesn't. It doesn't hurt to restate, I guess, that Gothitelle Urshifu is going to be absolutely nuts. I personally love Spectre. It's one of my favorite Pokemon. And I think that Talonflame Spectre is going to be really nice because Spectre in this format with like booster energy stuff going on does not benefit as much from its fast base speed as it did in Gen 8. But with Priority Tailwind going up next to it, like now suddenly it does benefit from its fast speed again. So I don't know. I think that that's the right choice. Having a Priority Tailwind setter next to it is going to be really, really useful, especially for like hyper offense modes. I think that the parts of this team that I don't really like are mostly the Lurantis and the Luxray. I think that Lurantis kind of just leaves a lot to be desired as like the only real Trick Room sweeper on this team. I think I already suggested Caparaja for another team, but it's still on the board. So like Caparaja, Caparaja's great. Everybody, go get it, draft it. It's so good. I don't know. I don't know why people leave it behind all the time. Sheer Force is great, and it has ground coverage. It's an excellent Terra user. Like it's got play rough and all that. I don't know. It's fantastic. High bulk, high base attack. I think that would be better than Lurantis for sure. And then the Luxray, I just think could be. I think the Luxray is fine here. I just think that it would be better to have Jolteon, honestly. Jolteon. Luxray just doesn't feel like it's potent enough as an offensive piece to take up that slot over like the utility and speed control that Jolteon could bring to this team as another option. So that's the only reason I say Jolteon over Luxray. I'm not actually sure if I think Jolteon might have been picked up though, so maybe that's a bad suggestion. No, it looks like it's still on the board. So yeah. At the time of this video, Jolteon is still available. So I want to say though, I really like the Wigglytuff here. I know that you kind of said you don't like it here, but it gives access to Paris Trap mode with the Gothitelle. So I think that's kind of funny. It's gimmicky, but I've lost several games to Paris Song recently to like Paris Trap modes, and I think that Wigglytuff might take people by surprise if they underestimate it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about that, so I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm really glad you pointed that out. And
yeah, we can. That's all I have to say on this one, though. If you want to move on.
Yeah, I will say I do think the Jolteon suggestion is pretty interesting here because a lot of your special offense is coming out of that spec tier, so I do kind of agree that like it wouldn't hurt to maybe add another special attacker, but like yeah. So yeah, let's go and move on to rank number 4 and go up. Yep, go for it.
Yep. So Depa's team is Landorus T, Iron Bundle, Grimmsnarl, Ceruledge, Rotom Mow, Zoroark, Hisui, Orthworm, Dragalge, Passimian, Grumpig, and Sudowoodo. So okay, this team's kind of funky to me. I'm not really sure what it is, but I think that Lando actually has relatively neutral synergy with everything that isn't the Levitate or Orthworm, Rotom or Orthworm. I'm not quite sure. I mean, when you add your thoughts here, Charles, feel free to like talk about the Lando because I just don't really see how it contributes too much on this team. Obviously, it's a strong offensive piece, but and there's like a good Disquake option mode in here, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's the right T1 pick for the rest of this team. I'm not sure. I do think that this team has good type diversity though, and it covers for its weaknesses effectively across pretty much all of its tiers. So I think that's really the main strength that I see here. You've got a lot of coverage for your own mons that work nicely in pairs and even like just sets of 4 here. It's just that Lando that's kind of tripping me up. I maybe I'm just not familiar with really what it does very well because to me it's just I don't know. Actually, Charles, do you want to just add your thoughts on Lando if there's any? Because I just don't see anything on it.
I mean, it does offer it is one of the best ground types in the game. Like just out of my opinion, yeah, it does want to get a lot of value out of Earthquake, and this team doesn't have a ton of options. I mean, I think honestly, like you Intimidate when it's next to Earthworm. Earthworm has a high defense stat. It's not dying. It's not dying physically. It's straight up just not dying. And you just got Earthquake next to it, and like I also just like I can really appreciate the fact that Orthworm exists on this team to help certain things set up as well. Like, I mean, it can help that Lando setup. It probably might not want to a lot of times, but it can. It can help the Ceruledge setup. I don't know how much that matters because it does have the Grimmsnarl, and Ceruledge Grimmsnarl is very good. And I've actually used
Yeah.
in Series 1, I actually used a team for a brief moment that had Orthworm, Ceruledge, Grimmsnarl, and the Orthworm kind of felt like overkill. But like in this team, it's also functioning as a pretty nice steel type, so I can appreciate that. But I guess
Yeah.
just to like finish off my thoughts with Lando, yeah, I think it's good. I can definitely understand where like it's a bit awkward on the team since it's not like I mean it does really want to click that earthquake, and a lot of these Pokemon on this team don't really want to be next to it when it's clicking that earthquake. But like I can appreciate its value with like as an intimidator and just as something with a really good typing and also just something that can have a lot of versatility and like good like pivoting tools. But
Yeah,
yeah.
actually, I forgot that it got Intimidate.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it got Sheer Force. I thought that was what it
Oh.
it was using. So I was like, not thinking that Earthquake was going to be. Um, I guess I just got mixed up because I thought the Incarnate got Intimidate and the other one, and not Sheer Force. So that was my bad. I see where there's more value with the Intimidate now. That's for sure. I don't know. I want to add here that I think that switching some of these other things around just to get a little bit better value out of the the rolls would be good because like Grimstone is absolutely great, but this team could be really improved. I think if Passimian was dropped in favor of like Morgrim, which would still give you access to the supportive toolkit of Grimmsnarl. And I don't see Grimmsnarl offering a lot of offensive value on this team most of the time. So using Morgrim in place of the Grimmsnarl at a lower tier would open up that slot for something like Iron Valiant or Hydreigon, to just add some more flexibility and more offensive power, I think, while not diminishing your supportive capabilities. Um, and Hydreigon would have another benefit of adding more Levitate synergy with the Lando Earthquake stuff. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's no Tailwind on this team, so Hydreigon would add Tailwind. So actually, I think that would be a good swap if you did Grimmsnarl to Hydreigon and then dropped the Passimian for Morgrim. Then I think you would beef up this team actually substantially. But yeah,
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of finish off my thoughts with this team, as opposed to hopefully I won't ramble this time, but yeah, I think this team is very solid. I think this team is very cut and dry. This team, I mean, anything here can realistically come, but like whenever they're in front of you, you're probably going to generally have a decent idea of what they're going to be doing. So we'll probably have to get a bit creative with some of these builds, but yeah, overall, I think the team is decently strong and it's definitely very functional. So yeah, and
moving on.
yep, I guess let's move on to number 3. And number 3 we have Hunter. And Hunter drafts Iron Hands, Tinglu, Enamorous Eye, Tornadus T, Bronzong. I know he loves Bronzong. Skeledirge, Greninja, Persian, Mach, Tropius, and Lycanroc Midnight. Okay, so to kind of just start off with this team, he's got really good trick room options. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna call Bronzong the best Pokemon in the game. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. But Bronzong is very good on this team, and I really like it next to the Iron Hands. Iron Hands can just fake out, help we get Trick Room up, and then abuse the Trick Room immediately after. Tinglu Bronzong. I use that in like a season of GLDL. It's stupid, especially with Bronzong Iron Defense. It's really strong, really good. And Skeledirge just kind of the icing on the cake here. Kind of just gives some extra coverage. Not really the greatest Trick Room on, but definitely can do the job when it needs to. And then on top of that, he's also got pretty nice tailwind out of the Torn here. An Amorous Eye also just offers a lot of pressure. It's just a very good fairy type. I'm very excited. It's actually like one of the Pokemon I'm most excited to see used, just
Yeah.
in general with Draft League. And excuse me, yeah, I think As we kind of get lower, we do kind of get the same syndrome. It's like maybe there's just less value a little bit like out of these like lower tiers, but like overall it's pretty good. I mean, I think Persian's insane. I'm not 100% sure how Persian's going to function on this team, so I'm very excited to see how he uses that. But yeah, and then for his last three picks, I'm kind of just like, okay, I'm sure he has an idea with them, but nothing that I'm really seeing. And I think that's probably like the most general weakness here for me is that like there's just some Pokemon like you generally probably aren't gonna have to worry about it too much. And the Tailwind mode,
Yeah.
while the Tailwind mode is really good and he's got very effective things, it's very I guess I don't really know the word, but you'll know what to prep for. Like you'll know what to prep for with the Tailwind, and yeah, with this team, I feel like you might run into just to the problem of like you'll know what's coming. Kind of like this, the same thing with like Ed's team. Like you'll know what's coming, you know what to prep for, but it's still very strong, and I think it's going to be a very consistent team. So yeah, that's what I'll say, and I'll let you continue on.
I don't have too much more to add. I think that this team is really solid. I think that it has a high level of synergy in several of its modes, and the support pieces here really gel nicely with the rest of what the team is capable of. It's difficult to find weaknesses. I think that maybe it'll fall slightly short because, or in terms of damage potential, it'll fall slightly short with some of the options here, requiring some wind up time. Like the Skeledirge, it really wants those Torch Song boosts, and Greninja with like getting a kill for Battle Bond. Like those just are slightly slower modes than what you might want in like a Trick Room, or sorry, a Tailwind mirror match. Because I feel like you're not gonna get a lot of value out of bringing some of these slower mons in like a Tailwind set. And other Tailwinds in this division are a little more potent offensively. Like we saw earlier with the Talonflame Spectrier, it's gonna be hard for this team to deal with the Talonflame Spectrier if it doesn't go Trick Room. So that, yeah, I don't know. Overall, though, I really just think that this team is really solid, and I'm mostly just reaching for whatever I can to find some constructive criticism about it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, this team is great. It really is nicely tuned well together, I think. And you said it well with the lower tiers as well. It's just hard to find good value in tier 4, especially later on. And I know some people in the community are all about Muck, but I don't know. I feel like Muck doesn't offer too much value here as a T3. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else could go there. I think Electrode might actually fit there nicely because it would be an exceptionally fast option to have to support the kind of Tailwind mode that's here, and it gets Eerie Impulse, and it could Eerie Impulse the Enamorus and boost it with like contrary stuff. So
Ooh, yeah.
I think that would be way better than the Muck here, just for some extra synergy across the different modes.
Yeah.
Because like the Trick Room is definitely solid, but Tailwind I think just needs a little bit of beef.
Yeah. I think my big thing with Muck just kind of seems like the Pokemon you need to bring if like you need like a really good fairy answer or a good fairy switch in. And like things like Bronzong and like Skeledirge existing on the team, I don't know how much there's a need for that.
True.
But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2 then. And I'll let you start this one off.
Number 2, Raz. Well, I'm surprised that this team is ranked number 2, first of all, before I even list anything, because there's no Dunsparce here. So I don't know.
Oh,
I
good
don't know.
point. Good point.
No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so his team is Ursaluna, Cresselia, Kingambit, Hariyama, Kilowattrel, Moltres, Gardevoir, Heracross, Quillfish, Spupa, and Flapple. This team honestly looks really fun to play. I'm really excited to see what Raz does with it because I feel like it has access to just an insane amount of tools. There's so much that it can do with the Gardevoir and the Kilowattrel and as support pieces, but also just potential offensive pieces. And then you've got the Cresselia that supports everything really nicely. Even Spupa here can do something. Like, this team is really solid in terms of what kind of options it has to support itself, and I feel like it's incredibly versatile. It has very strong synergy, both in its typings as well as just what the roles will want to do together. I mean, you've got the Ursaluna that can click super strong earthquakes next to Cresselia and Kilowattrel and Moltres and Gardevoir. Like, there's so many options for the Ursaluna to just spread damage and be supported in different modes at the same time. It's pretty cool. I like the way that this team is built. I think that it has super strong oppressive offense with the Kingambit and the Hariyama. Obviously, I already mentioned the Ursaluna, but even like Heracross here in the right matchups is going to do some work. There's also just a lot of effective bulk on this team with potent ways of handling so many potential matchups and prep options against it. So it's difficult to find weaknesses for this one as well. But I think that the only thing that this team might struggle with is if it goes up against teams that are high in defense. It doesn't have great special coverage here. Gardevoir and Cresselia can. I mean, Kilowattrel, if it gets competitive boosts, then it can do some work. But without the competitive boost, it's really just kind of a frail tailwind nuisance rather than an offensive threat or anything like that. I mean, really, with the Defiant and the competitive on this team, it's going to be difficult to bring Intimidates or things like Icy Wind or dropping any stats. It's going to be risky, that's for sure. I still think, though, that the special side of this team is a little bit lacking, and Gardevoir and Cresselia also kind of have some overlap in what they do here. But again, I'm kind of reaching, so I don't know. I think that the only transaction suggestion I'm going to say is Dunsparce, because obviously Dunsparce should be on this team, and it's not here. So, Raz, you might as well just be, rank 16 out of 14. So,
Man, Raz got to step it up in that regard. But I will say I do very much so agree with a lot of what you said here. Kind of just want to touch upon like the overlap, and I think general overlap is probably the biggest weakness this team has. So a few examples would be, the Cresselia and the Gardevoir. Not only are they the same type, and they're going to function in the same roles, except for like Cresselia is going to be much bulkier and going to be the more likely to set the trick room here. But like they got similar roles otherwise, and they also have very similar speed tiers, which is worth noting. And that's actually going to segue into my next point, is that, we have Ursaluna, we have Hariyama, and we have Kingambit. So first off, Ursaluna and Hariyama, they're both really strong Guts users that can function really well under Trick Room. I believe they're both base 50, which we'll get to that in a second. Kingambit is also a very high physical attacker. It's very good, but third base 50. So my point I'm trying to make here is generally you don't want Pokemon to have the same speed tier on your team. You don't want your own Pokemon to be speed tiding, because then like you don't know, like if there's ever a position where you need to knock out something with X Pokemon first. If I need to knock out something with Kingambit before Hariyama gets a hit off, like that's kind of a mix. It's a toss up unless you layer the speeds. And if you're running Trick Room, you don't really want to do that. I think that's generally something that is pretty rough. If you're running like a fast mode with Tailwind, it's fine. And like you want to run more like priority with like the black glasses of a Ping Gambit set, then like it's fine. But I think that kind of overlap could be a little rough. And like there's also with the guts, you have two really strong guts users that function at Trick Room. And on top of that, you have Heracross, which is another guts user, and also another fighting type, which Hariyama is. So like generally, like conceptually, this team is very strong and very potent. But I think there's just a lot of overlaps with what these Pokemon are doing. And if transactions were to be made, I think to kind of like remove some of those overlaps to bring more value, because like with these overlaps, what you're doing is you're lowering value of very very good Pokemon. Like, and yeah, and with that, I will also just end off with Spupa next to Cresselia with Friend Guard sounds really funny, and I hope that comes.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's great. You made a different suggestion actually than just Dunsparce. I think that swapping out Heracross for Sneasel would actually be really cool here, because it would give a lot more speed in the fast mode, without having to rely on like Hariyama staying in the fast mode for fake out options, or something like that. And since Heracross kind of already has the overlap with the guts users, I don't know. Sneasel looks decent as a swap there to me.
I also really like Sneasel. I think Sneasel looks pretty cool here. The added fake out could go a long way.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and finish it off with rank number 1. It's gonna be Dan. Boo! No, just kidding. So Dan drafts Tornadus I, Annihilate Mousehold, Farigiraf, Scizor Regidrago, Mabostiff, Pinkerchin Camera, and Toxapex Carbank. So I'm gonna tell you guys a secret to drafting here. Dan is clearly understanding the secret to drafting. And this is more so when you're looking at it from a PR standpoint. And if you want to have a top 3 team with PR, this is what you do. Round 1, you pick up Tornadus Incarnate. And so, yeah, this team has like I'm only halfway joking. Like this, like the Pokemon itself is just insane. It enables everything super well. Tailwind has a great support move pool. Is splashable, and it's just so good. And like I think Dan does a really good job of just really having things that work well with it. Like for example, the Regidrago. I mean, you said Tailwind, and you don't have a Fairy or Steel type, and Regidrago just sweeps your entire team. Not exactly great for the opponent. And on top of this, I mean, Annihilate Mousehold, like just another really strong VGC combo, and like just oh my god, very good. And then Farigiraf, honestly one of the best Trick Room setters in the game. Like Dan just has like a lot of really strong Pokemon that work well together, and I think that's where people are seeing the value with Dan's team, and I think that's why people are ranking it high, and I think that's why it probably gets number 1 here.
Yeah.
With that said, in terms of criticism, this is like I think the 3rd or 4th time I've said this. As we go down the tier list, the value does tend to drop. And with that, just to say it again, people are going to know their general threats of what they need to prep for high up, so Dan's going to have to get a bit creative. And this team can be pretty cut and dry, I think. But overall, it's really solid. And I think the lower tiers, while like they do kind of like they only semi lose value is a thing too, because I do see their roles here. Like I do see how they're like finishing off cores, and so I do see that. But yeah, man, Tornadus I and really strong options makes a really good team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I picked up too, and I was ranked number 1 by the community as well. Yeah. So Tornadus I, everybody, that's how you get rank 1. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Charles.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that I think that this this team kind of the only thing that I see as a potential issue is it could benefit from one less fairy weakness, and or its trick room is basically just like bring a ground type and you win. So, I mean, sort of, but there's you've got the Carbink, Toxapex, Camerupt, Pincurchin. They all share ground weakness. So it feels a little bit like maybe you could find some good value in swapping out one of those lower tiers, one of those four. I personally would actually swap out Pincurchin for like Rotom Frost or Fan, because probably Frost. But it would give you something that could work in Trick Room. It's obviously too fast to really do too much in Trick Room, but it's bulky enough that it could decently fit into it while also being a good switch-in option for the big ground weakness that you have across the board on the Trick Room mode. Obviously, most of what this team does is not based in Trick Room, but because all four of these Pokemon that can and want to sit in Trick Room don't, or they all share the same ground weakness, like having something to deal with that a little bit better, I think would be nice. But yeah, I mean, I think you said it really nicely when you said that basically that the team lacks a little bit of diversity in terms of what it's going to bring each week. Like, yeah, most people are probably going to just be able to prep for the top 6 and be okay, with maybe a little bit of funky stuff going on for specific matchups. But with that, it's going to be really difficult to break through Tornadus, Annihilate, Mousehold. Like,
Yeah.
come on. I think that might be nastier than what I drafted. It probably is nastier than what I drafted. So I'm glad I'm not in this division. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd
I
also
think
just
that
like.
wraps it up for me, though. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I do like the Rotom suggestion though, because Will-O-Wisp looks pretty nice on this team.
Yeah,
Like just like adding to that, I also still agree with everything else you said about it. But like, yeah,
yeah, Will-O-Wisp. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, it gets Will-O-Wisp in the ground. I think that makes it really good. But yeah, do you
For
have
sure.
anything else you'd like to add for this?
No, I think that wraps it up for me, man.
All right, so there you have it. We have our PRs, and yeah, I'm bad at outros, so thank you guys for watching. Do you have any final words for the good people?
Yeah, I do. I just want to remind everyone that if there's any issues with anything that we've said here, or if you disagree at all with anything we've said, then that's totally fair and reasonable. We encourage you to just at Piano Guy. That he'll definitely take all of your feedback and criticism for sure.
And that's Piano Guy 27.
Oh yes, the 27. My bad. My bad.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and good luck this season. Bye.